And some breaking news just out of the Supreme Court. The conservative majority tonight ruling that the Trump administration can enforce the Alien Enemies Act, which it had been using to rapidly deport suspected Venezuelan gang members. This ruling overturns a lower court order that temporarily blocked deportations under the law.
And after this massive ruling, liberals in the media were not happy.
We chose a felon who is more interested in loyalty, who's more interested in retribution, who's more interested in grift than in democracy. And we chose a felon because we didn't want to elect a black woman.
But you know who was having a good time after this ruling came out? Our buddy Stephen Miller.
This was a huge, a monumental victory for President Trump. The biggest legal win of this administration so far. A total embarrassment for crazy Judge Boasberg, who's been trying to force this president to bring foreign alien terrorists back onto American soil, trying to turn our planes around, trying to empty prisons in foreign countries and bring them back to our soil. This is a monumental, colossal victory for the rule of law, for the Constitution, for our founding generation, John Adams, who signed this law into effect in 1798, and for President Trump in fulfilling his mandate and campaign pledge.
And because this was such a big victory for Trump and his team, and all the things that we voted for to get illegals out of here in a much more quicker process, what is the media going to do? They're going to find the 1, 2, maybe 3 stories in the thousands of people that we are deporting to try to find one that possibly, they're correct, maybe was not done correctly or is done wrongfully, but maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But they're going to find that one story, which we're going to show you right here, to try to pinpoint what the ICE agents are doing, what the Trump administration is doing, and what the Supreme Court ruling says now, and how it is wrong, it's unjustified, it violates Americans. They're not going to talk about all of the gang members we've gotten out of the country, but we're going to see how they frame this and how all the media teams together do it at the same time. It's SCOTUS here, and it's Stephen Miller here. He's in a lot of videos. And me and Stephen, I'm going to speak on behalf of him. I checked with his legal team. I checked with his assistant. Don't worry. We just want to thank you guys for subscribing. It's amazing to see all the subscribers continue to go and see return viewers over and over. I love it. Thank you so much. And Stephen and his team say thank you so much as well.
Before that earlier freeze, several people say they were deported by mistake, including one Maryland man who was sent to one of El Salvador's mega prisons due to what ICE has called administrative error. The Supreme Court weighing in on his case tonight as well. Tom Costello explains.
In a late victory for the Trump administration, the Supreme Court today paused for now a lower court order that Kilmar Abrego Garcia must be brought back to the U.S. by tonight. The administration acknowledges an administrative error was behind ICE agents mistakenly deporting Garcia to a notorious prison in El Salvador during a roundup of alleged gang members.
ICE has testified, members of ICE, that he is an MS-13 gang member.
Court documents show Garcia entered the U.S. illegally in 2011 and was later detained. A government informant identified him as a member of the violent MS-13 gang. Abrego Garcia's attorney denies he's a gang member. An immigration court ordered him deported, but withheld deportation to his home country, El Salvador, citing threats to his life there. Now his wife is desperate to bring him home.
I want to tell him that I miss him and that I'm fighting for him.
Earlier today, an appeals court ruled against the administration, writing the government has no legal authority to remove him from the country without due process. But then the Supreme Court issued a stay as it considers whether to vacate or uphold the return order.
It's ridiculous that they're taking this case up to the Supreme Court. This is one guy. They made a mistake. They need to set it right.
So notice they called him a Maryland man. They did not call him an illegal alien. They did not really, in the beginning or in any of the other beginning headlines in this story, which I'm going to show you, did these media organizations state that this guy was an illegal alien. Secondly, he said he did not want to go back to El Salvador because of threats on his life. Is that because he's involved in some gang stuff down there? I don't know. Now, if they did send a guy to this max security prison and he wasn't associated with gangs, it's bad. Let's watch and see all these different news organizations that talk of this guy as a Maryland man. They leave out in their main headline that he was an illegal and ICE was trying to get him out of the country, and he already had an order to be removed.
Critical hearing today in the case of a Maryland father mistakenly sent to that notorious prison in El Salvador.
Attorneys for the Maryland man who was mistakenly deported to a prison in El Salvador are making another push for his return today.
The Trump administration heads to federal court today after being accused of wrongfully deporting a Maryland father to El Salvador.
The Maryland man deported to El Salvador after an administrative error.
There's actually a court hearing involving the Maryland father.
The Maryland father's case is in court
and happening now, a hearing for a Maryland man.
Details about a Maryland man.
Tonight, the Maryland man.
The Maryland man.
Maryland father with protected legal status.
The Maryland father with protected status.
A Maryland father with protected legal status.
A Maryland father with protected legal status.
The Maryland father.
That Maryland father.
A 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 Maryland father.
One of the things that struck me was the lawyer for the Maryland man saying there is no such thing as a removal order to nowhere.
That video was brought to you by MRC Newsbusters. Fantastic video. Now, we don't know the specifics fully behind the scenes, why he was sent to El Salvador, maybe why it's an error. But it's interesting how Trump team gets a huge win in the Supreme Court, and all the media rushes to point out this one instance where this guy was allegedly sent incorrectly, even though he was illegal. Maybe he wasn't in the gangs. And then when they talk about him, they only talk about him as a Maryland man. Not that he was here illegally, not that he had an order to be removed. It's very interesting. Now, before we hear from my buddy Stephen Miller, let's see who the liberal media decides to put on TV to talk in depth from their liberal perspective about how bad this ruling and the Trump team and the deportations are. And mind you, this guy is a professor at Princeton University. This will give you insight into what's going on there.
Have to grapple with it because it's the snake, it's the beast coiled up in the heart, the bosom of the country, as Frederick Douglass said. And the fact that they are doubling down on this shows you what kind of human beings they actually are.
Say more.
We chose a felon who is more interested in loyalty, who's more interested in retribution, who's more interested in grift than in democracy. And we chose a felon because we didn't want to elect a black woman. So to read that, to actually explicate that, is to say we would rather destroy the republic than for that to have happened. And until we grapple with it, there's no amount of protesting I could do. There's no amount of resistance that could come into play to actually force 78 million people to grapple with what motivated them to put themselves in this position.
Not only is this the guy who gets a platform on national television with shows that have bad ratings, but this is the guy that's in a position to teach young people how to think. This is a guy who's put in a position to grade young people with their exams, which helps them get through college, helps them get to the jobs they want. I am glad I'm not at one of those universities. Before we hear from Stephen Miller, let's hear from lovely Caroline Levitt on their perspective on this amazing court ruling. And wow, her makeup and her hair right here is on point.
This is a massive legal victory, Jesse, a massive victory for law and order and for our constitutional republic and the sovereignty of the United States of America. We called on the Supreme Court to rein in these activist judges like Judge Boasberg, who was completely out of line in trying to say that the president didn't have the executive authority to deport foreign terrorists off of our soil. We have always maintained the position at the White House that the president was well within his constitutional authority to do so. And this decision proves that President Trump and our administration have always been right from the beginning. He will continue to utilize the Alien Enemies Act to remove foreign terrorists and Tren de Aragua members, vicious gang members from American communities. And because of this ruling, the United States of America is a much safer place. Our team will get to work tomorrow to deport these heinous, violent foreign terrorists from our neighborhood.
Now for the main event, the brainiac, the whiz kid, my main man. And yes, all those terms have been cleared by his legal team, his assistant team, don't worry. Stephen Miller.
This was a huge, a monumental victory for President Trump. The biggest legal win of this administration so far. A total embarrassment for crazy Judge Boasberg, who's been trying to force this president to bring foreign alien terrorists back onto American soil, trying to turn our planes around, trying to empty prisons in foreign countries and bring them back to our soil. This is a monumental, colossal victory for the rule of law, for the Constitution, for our founding generation, John Adams, who signed this law into effect in 1798, and for President Trump in fulfilling his mandate and campaign pledge. What does this mean for you and your family watching at home tonight? It means that the Department of Justice, FBI, DEA, ATF, the U.S. Marshal Service, Customs and Border Protection, Border Patrol, and Immigrations and Customs Enforcement now have maximum authority to find and remove illegal alien gang members from Venezuela that have been responsible for so much misery in this country, for the torture and murder of Jocelyn Nungary, for the brutal slaying of Laken Riley. Those monsters can now be hunted down and expelled from this country with speed, force, and efficiency. This is a great day for America, Sean.
You're right. It is a great day, Stephen. I think he was talking to me, not to Sean Hannity on the show. He was talking to me. Now they can do all of these processes like this, deporting these guys back, especially to El Salvador with the partnership they have with them. They can do it with so much more efficiency. If ICE has been doing all these investigations, been finding these people are gang members or alleged gang members, they can, and especially the ones that have had crimes in the past that they've been arrested for, but then ICE couldn't work with the local law enforcement, they couldn't deport them. Now they can just go. Now the liberal media is going to say that, oh, you need to have more due process, and then you can have all these years. If these people already have an order of removal, we should be able to deport them. Now, whether or not we send them to El Salvador based on what they've been alleged versus what they've been convicted of, that's a whole complicated thing. But if they are connected with these gangs and we can deport them much faster now, that's a positive thing. Now, you don't want to get in this sticky thing where they're just alleged and they're not actually in the gang members. That's really bad. But now it can be moving a lot smoother. And it'll be interesting to see just how many more deportations we're able to do. And also, what is the main argument that's going to be funneled through all those news organizations, like I showed you earlier, with the same messaging? Is it going to be those one or two cases where there's some fuzzy details or maybe a mess up and that's all they're going to harp on? Not the thousands of people we got out of here who had committed murders or other bad things. It'll be interesting to watch that coordinated messaging. It's Sean Daniel here. If you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing or just hitting the like button down below. Coming to you guys from Japan. If any of you are in Japan, let me know in the comments. And I will see you in the next one.